Welcome, everybody, to Ask Angela. I'm Angela. I'm here with assistant Laura, and we
Okay,
have three more questions today.
three more questions. So last time we got to talk about who you are
Hmm.
and your switch to from using your own name to A.G. Marshall and changing those first two books to fit into the series.
Hmm.
So let's take it back a step and
Okay,
let's
yes.
ask, how did you even get started writing? How did you become an author?
So it's one of those things, and I think you'll hear this from a lot of authors, where it's like, oh, I've always written, I've always made up stories. It's not like I woke up one day when I was 18 and was like, yes, I will be an author,
Dun, da, da, da.
It was more like, middle school with a notebook carried around all the
Yes.
time. One of those like spiral bound ones.
Mhm.
I read a lot, and just like as a family, both my immediate and extended family, we're all readers, we're all storytellers. We lived within walking distance of a library.
That
Everyone had
helps.
their own library bag
Oh, yes.
that, you would just
Yes.
fill up every week, more than every week. We read a lot.
And you knew what your limits were. You knew exactly how many you were allowed to check out, and you checked out to
Oh,
the
yeah,
maximum
yeah,
every week.
yeah. Strategically, yeah.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Meeting that, getting, the bigger ones that'll last
Mhm.
longer. Yes, 100%. And it was the sort of thing, because it was a smallish town where, like, you really would max out a section. Like, you would have read everything
Oh
on that shelf.
yes.
And so when something new came in, you knew, right? You knew it was new, or the librarian would know it was new and would tell you. We had great relationships with the librarians as well. So it's,
That's always a good thing.
yeah, they were lovely. It was great. Shout out to the McAllister Public Library. Yeah, so it was always a part of my life. Always something I wanted to do, so just kept doing it. Took some writing classes. I was an English major for a while, but that's more
Oh,
like
I'd forgotten that.
reading literature.
Right.
And reading like a very specific kind of literature, which was not my favorite kind of literature.
Right.
So switched to piano, but still was taking writing courses, still was writing. So it's a long process. It's very organic. It's hard to say like, you know, a specific point where it began.
Wasn't there something about Mad Libs with your cousins too?
Yeah, yeah. So it was um we would have sleepovers, and it would that would be part of the entertainment. This is like, pre YouTube and
Free everything.
everything. Yeah, pre everything.
That sounded
So
awful. I'm older than you are, so don't take that wrong.
no, it's fine. We were like a little bit like minimalist anyway. Like we didn't have cable TV and things like that.
Yeah. Right.
So it really was like you have like a book on tape, or you have like a person telling a story kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, so a lot of times I would tell the story, or we would like make up a play and act it out, and I would often like just request everyone give me like an item or a character, and then I would like spin a bedtime story for them out of that.
I have a feeling that those bedtime stories aren't quite the blacksmith with, nice muscles.
There were no chiseled abs in those stories.
And your female cousins lament it.
Yeah, they don't know what they missed out on. For those of you not in the know,
Right.
I'm doing, based on what I did with the cousins, I'm doing a similar thing with my newsletter, where I had everybody give me like ideas or characters, and then chose them Mad Lib style. It ended up a lot less weird than it could have ended up, based on the combination of things. But so we have this Irish, he's a farrier actually, but everyone calls him a blacksmith. It's a thing in the book. And so that's going out to my newsletter for free right now. And yeah, he's a very nice looking farrier. Um,
Yes. Yes. So
yeah, there's some.
how do they sign up for that if they want more of this blacksmith?
Yeah, the website will
Yeah.
do it. I'm trying to remember that people will be watching these like down the road.
Oh,
So
that's a good point.
so yeah, it's right now it updates every month on the newsletter, but eventually that will end.
Yeah.
But
And you'll have the whole story. So
yeah, you'll still be able to find it. The Blacksmith's Dilemma. But yeah, so that's again, it's very organic. And I think we touched on that last week, how like I'd love to say there was a master plan. There's never been a master plan. So
nope,
from from
Yeah,
Cousins Mad Libs to like, this newsletter Mad Libs project.
right. With a few fairy tales along the way.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Which was like, it was more intimidating doing it for the newsletter. Because like my cousins, I knew
Oh,
well, right? I kind of knew what they would come up
right.
with, and it's not recorded. Like those, we didn't have a cell
Oh,
phone to press record. There's no like record of those stories.
oh, that would have been amazing.
Maybe.
Oh,
I
we need
genuinely
to
don't remember if they were good or not.
we need to interview some of your cousins just to find out what they remember of some of these.
I'd be curious if they even do remember. But yeah, so
That would be a lot of fun. Okay, so when you did reach that point that you
mhm.
had something that you felt like it was ready to publish that, how did you decide to self-publish instead of, maybe seeking an editor or
Yeah.
traditionally published?
So Rook and Shadow is my first published book. And I finished that just as I was finishing up grad school. Um, yeah, it's the blue. And that's like the fourth or fifth cover that book has had.
Yes. Yes.
Learned a lot about branding along the way. Yeah, so I'm in grad school for music. Have just finished up this novel, and I actually had a traditional publishing deal for music, for sheet music, around the same time, and it was like such a process. I had worked for something like 6 or 7 years to get this deal. Like
Wow.
diligently worked my network. I'm in grad school at a big program. I have a professional network in this industry. I know people who are published. Like it was a process.
Oh,
Me and my professor hustled to get this deal for 7 years. And so, and this is a 3-page piece of sheet music. Like it's not
oh
even a
goodness.
full book. Like it's a 3-page. And once we got the deal, it took a year for it to actually be published.
Wow.
And for those of you who are curious, that's Romanza, published under Angela Marshall. But yeah, so I'm coming off of this experience of 7 years to get a 3-page piece of music published in an industry where I genuinely have a lot of connections. And I'm looking at this novel having no connections in fiction publishing. And I'm like, there
Right.
is no way on earth I'm gonna hustle for, go get a degree in creative writing or publishing or something, go
Right.
like make these, there's no way. There's no way I'm going through this process again in a different industry. Um, and this was self-publishing through Amazon or even people doing it through their own website. Had been around for a few years at this point.
Okay.
The author Lindsay Baroker had a blog that kind of outlined what she had done. She was one of the earlier adopters of self-publishing, and so I had like a few role models I could look at and say like, oh, okay, this is how they did that. I actually had self-published some music as well. A project I had done for my undergrad degree, so I kind of knew the process a little bit already, and I thought, let's just do it. There was never a question of like, can I do this? Can I make it work? Should I like? I was confident. I was like, yeah, I can do it. Like,
Yay, go
I can
you.
figure it out. And so it was a question of like learning those skills or spending, the next decade pitching this book to people. And so yeah, it was a pretty easy choice.
Sounds wise. So when you did go that route, now of course there are so many self-published,
Mhm.
and each of them tend to have um, created their own publishing company
Mhm, yes.
behind everything. And so you've created Avenel Publishing.
Mhm.
So can you tell us where that came from, where that name came from, and what made you decide to use that rather than just your name or something, nothing?
Yeah, of course. And we talked about with the discussion of my pen names, I'm not great at like naming things in general. But this actually does have a special meaning. So Avenel was my grandmother's middle name,
Oh,
Janice Avenel, which I didn't even know that was a name until I didn't even know it was her name actually until her
oh,
funeral. Put a kind
oh,
of morbid twist on that. But yeah, and I was like, oh wow, like, and it was just so interesting that here's this thing I never knew about my grandmother, who was we were really close. She lived like within the same block as the library. So there were a lot of times where we would go to
Oh,
the library, then go to grandma's house. And she also loved reading. She was a book collector, loved antique books, wrote a
oh,
little bit as
wow.
well. She played the piano, so she was just this huge influence in my
Oh,
life. And so she had died fairly recently when I was publishing this book. And so it was just a tribute to her. And plus it's just a lovely name, right? A lovely word. But yeah, it was really a tribute to her and just like this family legacy of like literacy and storytelling.
well, I'm sure she would be quite proud of you and honored to have her name involved in your publishing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, she'd be so proud of all of it.
Oh, yeah. Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions this time.
Yeah, sorry, I get really emotional here right at the
I
end.
know it's so sad, but in a positive way. I
How did
mean,
those heartstrings? No, it's yeah, it's a positive story.
mhm. And she lives on.
For sure. Exactly, exactly. So it's a nice legacy. Um,
So,
but yeah, that takes us through our three questions.
good
Um,
question.
if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and we will collect them. We've got quite a bank of questions actually
Yes.
that we're working through, just that people have asked over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everybody also feel free to thank assistant Laura
Oh,
for
no, it's fun. Good.
being here with us, helping out, and yeah, we will see you all next time.
Bye.